All right. Well, good afternoon to everybody out there. We are joining the amazing virtual field trip crew yet again from ERM. And I just would like to remind everybody that when we are on a virtual field trip, students, please keep the chat professional. Please be patient with technology. As you know, sometimes we have issues. We will try to deal with that as soon as possible. Please, students, stay engaged. The trip is only as good as you make it. Listen to what's being said, participate, and ask those questions because I know they want to answer them. And most importantly, let's make sure we all have fun. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Benji and his crew, and take it away.
All right, hey everybody, I'm Benji Stute with Palm Beach County's Environmental Resources Management. I am so excited that you're joining us today from Lake Worth Lagoon, the county's largest estuary. We're going to explore this amazing estuary today. We're going to talk about why it's so important to our habitat, not just to come out on the boat and have fun, but all of the colorful characters that live here, how we can help it in the future, and we got some really awesome folks to help us out with that today. So first I want to introduce, this is Ronaldo Diaz.
Hello.
So Ronaldo is the Lake Worth Waterkeeper, okay? What does that mean?
So Lake Worth Waterkeepers is a nonprofit that we started, and we do a lot of work, including research, legal work, so like litigation and law changes, that sort of thing. We also have a lot of education programs, but we're here today because we are the Palm Beach County coordinator for the Horseshoe Crab Watch program, which is a really important study. It's a partnership between us as a coordinator, but also Florida Fish and Wildlife, FWC, Conservation Commission, UF-IFAS. There's a couple of different offices of theirs that are involved, Sea Grant. There's a number of organizations that work hard throughout the state of Florida. And just as the name implies, we're looking for horseshoe crabs. And we're really excited to join you here today because just only recently we discovered how important this particular sandbar is for horseshoe crab nesting, because in most places in the country, horseshoe crabs like beaches, like really high tide to nest, except here they're nesting away from beaches and they're nesting during low tide. And there's only one other place that we know of so far in the world where that happens, and that's also in Florida and Sarasota. And we don't know why. So there's a lot of questions on why they do that. So we're out here doing that kind of research. But most importantly, we need to know how many horseshoe crabs exist so that we can make better rules to protect them.
Right, and so Ronaldo, he talked about this is the Horseshoe Crab Watch, but you're not just watching horseshoe crabs, right? So this is actual research that's going on. Ronaldo is out here with Melissa Landis, who is also from Lake Worth Waterkeeper. We have also 3 students, high school students from Wellington High, who are out here. They are busy seining. Seine netting, we're going to talk about that later, and that's how we caught all these cool critters that we're going to be able to show you in the hand. But Ronaldo, I know you and Melissa and the girls over here have a lot of important work to do, so I'm going to let you get to it. We're going to meet you about a half hour and see what's going on with this research, okay?
All right, we're going to collect some crabs for tagging. There's one right there if you want to highlight.
Okay.
And we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you, Ronaldo. Okay, so Ronaldo obviously kind of gave it away. We are going to talk about horseshoe crabs today. These are amazing animals, completely prehistoric. We're going to talk about a lot of other stuff in the estuary too, and I'm really excited because we've got Kylie Ariotti here as well with ERM.
Climbing out of the water here. Hey guys, how are you?
So Kylie, if you guys have been on these trips before, you know that I am kind of a swamp guy. That is my safe space. And Kylie, this is your safe space, right?
I love the estuary. This is such a thriving nursery, you guys. The amount of different creatures that live here from all different little walks of marine life, it's absolutely amazing. So I want to really dig in and show you guys some of these creatures. But first, can we introduce you guys to a horseshoe crab?
Yes. Before we do that, I want to say a belated, because what you guys don't see behind the camera is a couple of other amazing ladies who are taking photos that you guys get to see right later on. And Alicia Anderson is behind the camera. She's going to be videoing this whole thing. So, happy belated, right?
Yeah.
International.
Oh, Women's Day.
Right.
That's exactly right. Guys, I'm so enthralled with the estuary. I'm forgetting how important fun day it was this yesterday. So yeah, we really appreciate all of the women I get to work with. I've learned so much from people all through walks of life, all the different jobs that I've had that are women. So it's really great to be a part of teams like this.
Yep, and so we've got an awesome collaboration here. So Kylie,
Wait a
got
minute.
one of these.
Happy Women's Day, Ian.
All right, guys. So we have one of these completely prehistoric animals right behind us. So come on over here, and I'm going to pick this thing up. And Kylie, I want you to talk about why. Now, let's get this out of the way first, Alicia. If we can come before we see this animal up close and in the hand. I want to get this out of the way because this is usually a question, and I forgot to reiterate what was said right at the beginning. This trip is for you guys. Please engage in the chat. Ask questions.
Ask us anything.
We have things that we're going to talk about, but we want this trip to be led by you, okay? The other thing I want to get out of the way right off the bat, because this is a question we always get, is, Kylie, are there sharks in this water?
Yes.
Yes. Did you see any sharks?
Not today. Yesterday, though.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see one today as well. And we'll talk a little later about why we feel safe being right here in and amongst the sharks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so horseshoe crabs.
So a lot of people, right off the back, they go, that's scary. Why are you touching it? To be completely honest, you guys, these creatures are completely harmless. They are older than dinosaurs. Yes, I said that right. They are older than the dinosaurs that walked on this earth, a couple 100 million years old. And what you're looking at today is basically what they looked like that long ago. So these are called living fossils, which are really cool. Although they have the name crab, they are actually more closely related to scorpions and spiders. But these guys have some crazy anatomy and they're really strange looking. So, Ben, do you want to talk a little bit about what makes a horseshoe crab a horseshoe crab?
Yeah, I mean, so Kylie, let's look at what is going on underneath this, right? So these critters, you can imagine, before the dinosaurs, these were some of the first things that were walking around on the marine floor. Now, they have this hard exterior shell that helps protect them, and they have these legs that allow them to burrow themselves into the sand and also just kind of anchor themselves against the sand to protect themselves from some predators. Now, Kylie, it looks like we've got eyes right here, right?
Oh, yeah, we do.
So, but those are pretty primitive, right?
You have some old school compound eyes.
Right. And so these guys are not seeing exactly like you and I are seeing. This is just such a prehistoric animal. I'm holding him by the edges here because even though this is a hard exterior, these animals are actually really sensitive. A lot of people get scared by these animals because of this thing, their tail, right? Now this looks like it's a big old spike that's gonna just, I don't know, murder me, right?
Possibly, but I don't
So
think
you're
they're
used
into
to
that.
seeing this like something like this appendage on stingrays and things like that, but this is a harmless tail, and it is used for a really specific purpose, and that is what?
To flip themselves back over.
Right. So when these guys get turned upside down like he is right now, you can see he's searching for that sand with that tail and trying to get himself nice and flipped over. All right, so Kylie, can you just point out what we're looking at here? Is this a male, a female? How do we know?
Yeah.
These legs look really scary, right? They have pinchers.
So the bottom side gets a little bit scarier, doesn't it? So as you can see, Benji is touching, I'm touching. These pinchers do not pack a punch like something like a blue crab or a stone crab would. Instead, these are used to help file around in the sand to help find some of their favorite meals, which include small clams, worms, and other little invertebrates, things without spines that live in our sandy bottoms here in the estuary. Now, the best way you can tell in an adult, which that's what we have here, we have an adult, to tell if it's a boy or a girl, a male or a female, is these front two legs. So these, you see these little hooks on these front two legs? Those are characteristic of male horseshoe crabs, and that's to help in mating to hook onto that female. You guys will learn a lot more about that from Ronaldo and Melissa with Waterkeepers here in a minute. But one of the most interesting parts of this crab is where its mouth is. Benji, do you know what part's the mouth?
No.
Well, you see all these bristles here. I say it's like a toothbrush, so that's how I help remember it. But this is where that crab's mouth is, and you can see these two little pinchers here. That's what they'll actually bring. These bigger pinchers will bring food to these little pinchers, and then they'll feed it to themselves down here into their mouth. One other really cool part about them is they have something known as book gills. So this back part of them has these gills. He's a little stressed out. We're going to give him a second. These book gills is how they are actually able to breathe. So they breathe just like fish with gills. Those gills have to be moist. They can spend a certain amount of time out of the water. But what's also cool about these gills is they can actually flap them and to a certain degree actually swim around using their book gills. So really, really cool creatures.
All right. Now, two other things.
Can I ask a quick question there?
Yeah.
How long can you keep them out of the water like that? I know you said they're a little distressed, or this guy is. How long can he remain out of the water?
So, I don't know, Kylie. I mean, you have an answer for that?
So they will typically, they can beach themselves. So as long as those gills stay moist, they can pretty much stay out of the water. So typically that's around anywhere between like 10 and 20 minutes. If they're sitting in a shallow tidal area where water comes in and flushes, the area, they can stay out longer. But yeah, not too long. At the most, like 10 minutes, and it really depends the heat and dryness of the day.
Very cool. Thanks.
So I want to talk about something we see on here. Then we're going to put him down, and we're going to talk about two reasons why these prehistoric creatures are really important to humans and also to birds. But before we do that, Kylie, I don't know, Alicia and Chris, if you can see these little white things on here.
Crawling around.
Do you see how they're moving? These little white spots?
Yeah, we can see them. It looks kind of like worms.
They are worms. Yes. So, Kylie, what are these worms that look like little maggots that are running around on this horseshoe crab? It seems like these would be really detrimental to this horseshoe crab.
They do. They almost look like they're a parasite or parasitic to the crab, but they actually live in a symbiotic relationship here on the crab. These are actually known as horseshoe crab flatworms. So they are found in the sand, but typically you will always find them on horseshoe crabs, and they help clean up this underside of the shell so that they can stay busy eating and finding things that they need. So they live in that little symbiotic relationship there.
All right, we're going to put him down. First, we're going to show you that this one, he's got a little new jewelry right there, and we're going to learn about that when we go visit with Ronaldo and Melissa. But let's look at kind of the bigger ecosystem here. And we're going to see him on his way. Leave him alone. So, Kylie, we wanted to talk about why these animals are important, right? So first, these prehistoric animals, hundreds of millions of years old, are super important to people, right?
Yeah. Every single person can basically say thank you to a horseshoe crab. If you've ever been in a hospital, if you've ever had an IV, if you've ever had an injection from a medical professional, that is thank you to a horseshoe crab, as they have really, really special blue blood. Benji, what makes that blood blue?
So the blood is actually copper-based, okay? So our blood is red when we get a cut. Our blood is red when it comes out of us, and that's because our blood is iron-based. But these prehistoric animals, their blood is copper-based, so their blood is bright blue, which is really, really interesting. And so Kylie was talking about any injectables, any implants. That's so true. If you get like a knee replacement, or your mom or dad gets a knee replacement or a hip replacement, or maybe your grandma and grandpa, all of those are tested with horseshoe crab blood too. Any vaccine that you've gotten, any allergy shot that you've gotten, all of this we can say
all make sure that they're safe for you to consume as a human.
Right. And so, Kylie, why is that? What can we use from this crazy bright sky blue blood that makes things safe for us to put into our bodies?
So in their blood, they have a special enzyme that actually clots in the presence of harmful bacteria to humans. So we know that, hey, this will not do good inside of a human. We cannot inject these. We cannot put these implants in there. So these guys are super special. The medical industry, when they do collect them, they have special permits that force them to return the crabs back to the waters that they found them, so they are not killed. So that's a good thing that we have there. So thank you to us, but we want to give them back and have a good, safe place for their populations to recover in the wild.
Kylie,
talking about this. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, I have a question about the lifespan of a horseshoe crab. Like, how long do they normally live?
That's a good question.
I think that might be a Ronaldo question.
I don't want to misspeak, but I think Ronaldo has the good facts on that one to say. But they do not live forever. Ronaldo will give you some details, but I believe it's no more than 20 years.
That sounds good. We'll wait for Ronaldo.
Oh, for a crab, yeah, and that's if you know it's a rough little world out here. There's a lot of different things that can enter the estuary, so they start off small, and hopefully we'll find some little ones to show you guys of where they start their size out and life out here in the estuary.
Now, before we get into why they're really important for birds and why Ronaldo is doing this study, not just because they're important to humans, but also wildlife. So Kylie talked about this enzyme in the blood, and it has to do with their immunity. And because they are so old, our immune systems are super advanced as far as evolution goes. You know, we have all of these different blood cell types, and we create antibodies, and all of this other, kind of adaptations through evolution that we have gained to help fight disease. These animals rely on that enzyme. Okay, that's their immunity. When something gets into that blood that is foreign, that is bad, those enzymes attack it, they surround it, and they eradicate it. So the blue blood and the enzymes that we rely on are actually their very, very prehistoric immune system. All right, so we have been utilizing these animals for decades and decades and decades and decades. Birds have also adapted to really rely on these animals. And so Kylie, now not many birds are going to be able to come down and pick up this really hard-shelled kind of big animal.
No, they like to bury
bottom,
too.
Right?
It's already starting to bury under the sand. At certain points you can't even see them, and the juveniles do as well, but they blend in so well you'll never be able to see it. But what's super important, why is this species so connected to birds, especially migratory birds? And it has to do with their reproduction, so their eggs. So these crabs, when they mate, they spread hundreds of thousands of eggs. They mate in large groups during full moons. We'll have Ronaldo really go into depth about that. But all of these eggs that get spread about, there are certain species of bird, like the red knot, that is critically tied to these species, and it's specifically their eggs. They are going to areas where these horseshoe crabs are spawning, where they're spreading their eggs, and then they are required, the red knot needs that for their food to make the long journey back up to the northern parts of our earth where they breed.
Right, and so let's talk about these migratory birds, because these guys are also like superheroes. Okay, so the eggs that they are eating, now these guys are breeding right now. Okay, but these migratory birds, they have adaptations that we're just learning about through science. And some of these, especially shorebirds like red knots and the godwits, right? Mm-hmm. They will make flights, right? They will make flights that are thousands and thousands of miles in one shot. It may take them several days to make that flight. They actually sleep during the flight by turning off half of their brain for seconds at a time. So like left half of the brain's asleep, right half of the brain's asleep, left half of the brain's asleep. All this time, they're also navigating, right? So they're flying, they're navigating, they're not drinking at all. So these birds have adapted these crazy morphological adaptations to be able to make this journey. These birds will find these areas like where horseshoe crabs are mating, and they have evolved to rely specifically on these locations. And these birds can actually double their weight in like 2 weeks. Can you imagine that? Just eating so much that you double your weight in 2 weeks, okay? And they take off and they're just jiggly balls of muscle and fat, all right? And by the time they land, they're kind of back to their normal weight. They're almost starving, but that's because they've metabolized all of that fat and even their muscle to give them water during their journey while they're flying this whole time and can't even drink, okay? Imagine trying to do that if you couldn't fatten up before your trip, which makes these animals not just really cool in their own right and important to people, but important to so many migratory birds especially. Okay, so you can tell we're totally nerding out here. We're in a really special place. I want to talk about where we are because I want to give it its due, and then we're going to put a bunch of animals in our hands. I'm probably going to get pinched and stung and all the things that I know that you guys want to see. But where we are, Kylie, is Lake Worth Lagoon, right?
Yeah.
And so why is this place so special? Why are estuaries so special? And what is an estuary?
So you guys might have heard this in your science class before, but specifically Lake Worth Lagoon is Palm Beach County's largest estuary, as Benji introduced when we first got here. But estuary, that's a weird word. What does it mean? Isn't it just water? Well, it's a really special body of water. The biggest thing that's special about it is where we see our freshwater inputs mixed with our saltwater inlets. So it creates this really unique ecosystem that is a complete nursery. It's a hard ecosystem to live in, but so many different creatures have adapted to thrive in this ecosystem and allowed them to raise their young. And one of the biggest proponents of this nursery habitat are two different plant species.
Right. So we're going to go check out those plant species right now. They're right over here. And also some beautiful grass that makes the nice lawn. Things like sea turtles, manatees all there, right? All right. So let's go over here, guys. We'll talk about some of the plants of the estuary. Kylie, I'm going to let you go into the mangroves right there.
As you guys are walking, Benji, it's a little bit windy out there on occasion, so just letting you know.
Right. Yes.
Just some questions about like how they eat and
Sorry, I'm losing you over the announcements. You had a question there?
Yes, sorry, I tried to mute on time. I was asking, I've got a bunch of students wondering what they eat, what are their main sources of food, that kind of thing.
The horseshoe crabs?
Yes, that's
So
right.
right. So these horseshoe crabs they're filter feeders. All right. So they're using those little feet, and they're just like crayfish, other crab species. They're gonna be picking through detritus that's on the bottom of the estuary. This is like little bits of plant material, organic matter. If there's a dead fish or something like that, then it's decomposing. They're gonna just keep feeding on that. So they're really kind of the base of the food chain. They are taking all of the dead and dying organic material that's on the bottom. They're filter feeding that through, and they're gaining nutrients from that. So they're not like these big scary predators for sure. Any other questions before we run over?
No, they're curious about the food. They're curious about how they protect themselves.
Yeah, so they protect themselves with that really hard shell, that exoskeleton. They are able to burrow into the sand to hide from other predators. And then, but they are fairly vulnerable to animals that can eat them because they don't move really fast. And so their other kind of adaptation is just safety in numbers. And so historically, there were so many of these animals. And that's why Ronaldo and Melissa are doing some of this work, is because we're seeing those trends change a little bit.
That's great. I'm hearing a lot of noise right now, actually, a lot of like bang kind of noise.
A lot of what?
I think it's just some banging on the
Oh,
side.
okay. Thank you. All right.
Great. Thank you.
All right. So the other thing I want to make sure that I say here is we are at MacArthur Beach State Park. Okay. This is the only state park in Palm Beach County. It is an incredible resource if you haven't been, because it preserves habitats from a natural living nearshore reef with corals and tropical fish all the way, watch your wind, all the way through the coastal hammock and uplands and here into the estuary in Lake Worth Lagoon. And this is a really special place for us, for ERM, Environmental Resources Management, because it is the location of our first restoration project here in Lake Worth Lagoon, and that's Munyon Island, which is behind us. This is an area, it's a natural island. It used to be known as Pelican Island because it was a massive bird rookery where they would breed. It had a historic hotel on it from kind of this snake oil salesman guy way back in the, about 100 years ago. And he had this elixir that was supposed to fix everything. The hotel burned down. The island became infested with exotics. And so we came in about 25 years ago and we took all that exotic vegetation off. We lowered the ground level to create new seagrass and mangrove habitat. And it has become this amazing mangrove forest. If you guys are interested in what we're seeing today, you all can come out here. High Point Paddle Adventures is the paddleboard vendor that is right here in the park. You can go on their website. Lexi owns the place. She's a local, grew up here and planted some of the mangroves that are on this island. So all of you guys can come out here, paddleboard. and check out the estuary that we're exploring today. So let's go check out some of these mangroves, and then we'll get some of these critters in our hand.
Hi, you guys. So behind me is some really special trees. I don't know if you guys have heard of these before, but these are called mangroves. Here in Florida, we have 3 different species of mangroves that we see. And behind us, you can actually see 2 different kinds and the stark difference between them. Now, mangroves are essential to estuaries as they are what helps stabilize sediment in estuaries. It helps sequester carbon, so that means take excess carbon out of the water and environment to keep it healthier. As well as you can see all of this stuff hanging. So this here behind me is a red mangrove. It's kind of the stereotypical mangrove that people think of when you hear the word mangrove. They have these beautiful prop roots that dangle down into the water. And it's these roots in particular that help create such essential nursery habitat for so many species of juvenile game fish. I mean, you can contribute almost any fish that you eat in a restaurant that's a saltwater. Any species of fish that you're eating at a restaurant that comes from the salt water, you can thank mangrove forests for that fish's survival to where it goes out to in the ocean. You can also see hanging here some sessile creatures. These are creatures in our ocean that fix themselves onto different substrates, let it be a mangrove root or a rock or a coral. And these are oysters and barnacles, so you can kind of see the 2 differences. These oysters have more of a purpley tinge, where the barnacles are more of a gray-white. Now these guys, as you can see, you're probably like, well, they must be dead if they're out of the water, but that's just not true. These guys have special adaptations capabilities that they know when the tide is going out to close up, hold on to as much of that water as they can, and wait for that next tide to come back out. Now, it also has to be smart. If they pick a spot that's too high, where the water may never reach again, they could potentially die. So they have to be smart when they pick their spot on hardened substrates like these mangrove roots here. Now, the last other mangrove that we have over here, if Alicia goes over to this other side, you guys see what looks almost like little twigs sticking up, and the tree that goes along with that. That is a black mangrove, the second species that we're going to discuss here of our 3. Now, the black mangrove is really cool. They have these things called pneumatophores, which are all these little guys sticking up all these little sticks. And it's what actually allows them to be able to respire. So for them, even when they're submerged underwater, to be able to get oxygen, not oxygen, carbon dioxide.
You can go in there and point to us.
Oh, I can come. I'm going to crawl over. Hold on, you guys.
Kylie, we have a couple questions about the oysters. Number 1, how do they stay attached to those root systems of the mangroves? And number 2, are they there permanently now?
So they are there permanently. That's a great question. So sessile creatures in general, almost every single creature that exists in our ocean typically spends some part of its time in a larval state. So where it's free swimming, can go around. So these little oysters and these little barnacles, they start off as these little guys that are swimming around. And then they come to a point where they go, hey, I think that's a good place to stick and make the rest of my life. And what it actually is essentially, it's like their spit, and they'll spit, and it's like a hardened cement glue, and they spit, and they spit, and they spit, and they stick themselves to the hardened substrate. And then what they'll do is they metamorphosize, and create the new creature that you see here. They'll create this calcified shell, same with these barnacles. And then what they'll do is they'll open up when the water comes in, and then they're filter feeders. So oysters are extremely important in estuarine ecosystems. They filter. One oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water a day, filtering out different particulates and things to help clean our waterways. So seeing oysters in waterways means that this waterway is healthy and it's doing well, and you always want to see more and more oysters. So good question.
Really awesome. Thank you so much. That's great.
You're so welcome.
All right, Kylie, let's come over here. Let's check out some
cool stuff.
Let me follow you. Okay, woo!
Woo, Benji, what did you find?
All right, so I am probably going to ask you what we found. And the reason I'm going to ask you is because this is your area of expertise. But Kylie, I wanted to ask you something about these prop roots. And you talked about how it's a nursery, right?
Yeah.
And so these prop roots on these mangroves, when the tide is high, this gives all of these juvenile fish an area to hide from predators. And I actually, while you were talking about the mangroves, I saw one of those predators out on the sandbar because I saw a fin. I saw a fin cruising out of the sandbar. Now, it wasn't a big fin, right?
No.
So we feel totally safe here. Number one, we are not on the menu for almost any shark. In fact, I love how, even though it's very sensationalized, some of the Shark Week and Shark Fest, they have started calling the vast majority of things shark bites, because that's what they are. They're accidental bites. They're not attacks, right? So we feel very safe because what we have here in the estuary is juvenile lemon sharks, juvenile bull sharks, like you saw yesterday. I think that is so cool that we have these juvenile shark species in here, because this really points to this estuary being extraordinarily productive. There's a reason why these mama sharks will come in, like mother bull sharks, and have their young here in the estuary. They know this is a good spot because
it's safe. They know there's food. There's a bunch of different stuff for them to be able to grow into big, strong sharks and make their way on their own. So it's a good thing if you see sharks. It means a very healthy ecosystem is surrounding you.
So the bottom of this estuary is blanketed by a couple of different plants. This is a seagrass. This is called Johnson seagrass. You see these tiny little blades. You can see this tuber root. This was actually floating in the water. I didn't pick this up. And one of the ways that Johnson seagrass, these are true plants. They're flowering plants. But one of the other ways that they move about and recolonize areas is they will break off, Johnson seagrass specifically. It will float along with the tide. It'll settle out, and it'll root itself in another place. Seagrass is crucial to some of the critters that we really, really love. Okay?
I was just thinking, hold still.
Right? So, so I'm getting some coaching from Alicia, which I need often. They're crucial for things like juvenile green sea turtles. Here in Lake Worth Lagoon, we have one of the densest populations of juvenile green sea turtles on the East Coast, okay? They are super reliant on Lake Worth Lagoon to grow into big turtles, get back out offshore, and then start their breeding cycle. But they live for years and years growing right here in Lake Worth Lagoon. So Kylie, this looks like grass.
It does.
What is this? It almost looks like feathery grass, but it's not a grass, right?
So as Benji was saying, we have quite a few different plants, especially aquatic plants that survive here in estuaries. So we have the beautiful flowering seagrass that is such essential habitat, but we also have other kinds of algae, some that even look like it might be a seagrass, but this is something known as feathering caulerpa. So this is an algae that grows similarly to seagrass, but it does not flower, and you can see as it sits there in the water, it kind of feathers along. A good food source to a lot of different creatures as well, but not a true seagrass, so it can be easily misconstrued. I don't know if we have any other... Oh, I can also show you some examples of some others. So other plant-like creatures, we have a lot of algae. So this is another kind of algae. This is a red drift algae. You can see the different colors and things that it comes in, but these are all plants. These are not animals here. And then one last one, I don't know if I have. Just another example of some different kinds of algae that exist in our estuaries that are super important to helping creatures survive, creatures hide, and all these different things. Benji, did you get hurt over there?
How about this angle? What is this here, Kylie?
Well, that right there is a juvenile blue crab. If you guys have been to a restaurant down in the south, you've probably seen a crab boil, and most likely it's either these guys or some crawdads. But these guys, these blue crabs here, are flourishing in our estuary. Something that's really cool about them is they are a swimming crab. So they have these swimmerettes, which are these back legs, which allow them to go super, super fast to evade predators, as well as to quickly attack prey. a lot of our crab species, like the hermit crabs and different things, they are actually detrivores, so they're going to look for just dead, easy prey for them to go and eat off of the bottom as well. Ooh, see how fast they go? But these blue crabs will actually viciously attack fish out of the water column and different things that pass along them. They're really great at camouflaging. You can see how he buries himself there in the water. So they're really hard to see sometimes, but you can spook them pretty easily and they get going.
Right, and this is how you would hold the crab if you did not want to get pinched. So you can see those swimmerettes though. Look at how fast this guy moves. I mean, he is just totally, he's just out of here. All right, so another crab species.
So where those guys are those vicious predator crabs that we have in super fast. This we have here is called a hermit crab. Now these guys are the king of the estuaries and the fact of beneficial reuse. So what they do is they don't grow this shell themselves. They borrow these from other crabs. But the original owner of this shell is a snail. It's a marine gastropod is what they're scientifically known as. But these shells here, the snail passes away, and these crabs, these hermit crabs, like the striped hermit crab in here, is actually going to take vacancy of it, and maybe at some point, once it grows large enough, make a trade up with other species of hermit crab. So you guys can kind of see them in there. Pretty cool creatures. Since we're still on the crab game, what other crab does Benji have over here?
So this crab is a crab that if you all like seafood, you probably know about. And this is a juvenile stone crab. So you see those big claws up there up front. And sorry. Now this crab, you'll notice it doesn't have swimmerettes. It has normal legs like you would think. And that's because this crab lives on the bottom and it hides in these little crevices. And it has these huge claws in the front. And those are the things that we eat. One of the cool things about stone crabs is you can harvest these stone crab claws and not affect the crab. So that's one of the beautiful things about the stone crab fishery is that we can take these crabs, we catch them in traps, and we just take this claw and we move it this way across their face, and it will actually break off their body. There's a membrane in there. The crab is not harmed, and it will regrow that claw. And so with males, you're allowed to take both claws. With females, you're allowed to take one claw when you're, and they have to be a certain size. But a really cool crab and a really cool and very sustainable fishery. So Kylie, we're kind of running out of time. I want to hit this and then our jellyfish, and then we're going to go check in with Ronaldo.
All right, well, you guys might see just this giant lump of nothing here, but that's what makes estuaries so special and a lot of sea life so special. Is the fact that even something that appears to not be alive is actually a living creature. So what we have here is a conglomerate of tunicates. Tunicates are a really cool creature. They are really old. They've lived in our ocean for a really long time. And what they do is they are actually in their larval species and their larval stage. They have something called a notochord, which is basically pre-spinal cord. So when we're in our mommy's bellies, we have a notochord at one point. They develop out of it and they become this sessile or a creature that gets stuck. And then they become these little filter feeders. So you can see this sea squirt on the end here. They call them sea squirts because they are filter feeders. So what they'll do is they'll siphon water in and then shoot water out. You can see his in and out here. But what's also cool here is a lot of creatures in our estuary have adapted to utilize these other creatures for camouflage and protection. So this all just seems like the same thing, but actually right here is our great little camouflaging friend. I don't know if you guys can see him. Whoop. This is known as a decorator crab, and he gets his name because what he'll do is he'll find things like sea pork, sponges, corals, and he'll collect all of that, cover himself in it, and then very easily hide within those little ecosystems. At the same time, though, he's also using this ecosystem to eat food off of. So he's eating any kind of little particulates that fall on and around them, eat that up. It's a really cool little creature. These guys can also be found out on reefs, and they get really cool colors depending on what color sponges they find and decorate themselves with. So cool little crab.
Speaking of cool colors, Kylie,
let's
come over here where we got a little clearer water.
tide is coming in, you guys.
All right, so Alicia, you can kind of come in front here, see what else we got in here. So one of the very cool things that we have in here
Do a side first.
is a species of jellyfish. Now you can see that these jellyfish are doing what you would think jellyfish do, but I'm going to take this jellyfish out and show you the incredible bottom side of these jellies. And then we're going to talk about why these are such rad critters.
So while Benji's doing this, you guys, jellyfish, you know, you're not supposed to be touching them. But jellyfish, different species of them have different stinging potencies, I should say. So they're cnidarians. What they do is they do have little stinging harpoon cells that they can shoot out. But different ones affect at different levels, and some of them are specific to hurting really small things that they like to eat. And then some creatures, some larger species of jellyfish, could pack a certain punch for a human. But these guys here, they're not interested in using us as a food source. So their sting doesn't hurt us too bad.
Too bad. My hands are burning a little bit as we do this. But these are cool because these are upside down jellies. These are, okay, same jellyfish, different colors. And this is how they would sit on the bottom. They're called upside down jellyfish because these guys actually have a symbiotic relationship with a cyanobacteria, right? And so the cyanobacteria create these colonies on these jellyfish tentacles, and these jellyfish find a nice calm area of water just like we're in right now. And when they find it, because they can move like a jellyfish, this one's moving, when they find it, they flip upside down, and all of these cyanobacteria colonies that are on the tentacles photosynthesize and provide the jellyfish with food. So many other jellyfish will actually have really potent stings, and they will capture fish, and they will feed on fish and other marine animals. But these guys have this really special symbiotic relationship where the cyanobacteria that are living on the tentacles actually provide them with food. And so this estuary is one of the really special places for these guys, the upside down jellyfish. All right, so Kylie, let's go see if we can find Ronaldo and our intrepid students from Wellington High. It's going to get windy, but we're going to go over here so we're in the nice shade and we can see what kind of research these folks are doing.
All right,
Any questions?
No, they were very excited about the jellyfish, so we're good with that. But no, we're just excited to see this next crew.
Okay,
Yeah, so
if you could get me some sunlight on these things.
All right, so Ronaldo, if you could move so we can get some sunlight on here.
They need to be in the shade. Okay. All right. Well, no. Yeah, there we go.
So Ronaldo, what do we got here? What are we doing? Before we do that, why don't we come up here? And you guys got to introduce yourself. You're waist deep in the estuary. So who do we have here?
Hi, I'm Adeline. I'm Kaylee. I'm Maya.
Adeline, Kaylee, and Maya. And you guys are in whose class at Wellington High?
I'm in Mr. Bonnie's. Yeah, me too.
All right.
In Mr. Regolo's class.
Awesome. And so they came out here today to help Ronaldo and Melissa with some really cool research that we're doing on these crabs. And so we went over kind of like the biomedical, right? We went over why they're important for migratory birds. But there's a reason why FWC is so interested in this species, right, Ronaldo? And why is that? Because we're seeing less and less of them.
Right, we're seeing less and less of them, and we don't really know. We have our hunches on why that's happening, but in places, especially in Florida, we don't really know where they're nesting, and it's really important to know where they're laying their eggs, because of a few reasons. One, obviously, they're important, as Benji mentioned, for birds and whatnot, but also. They tend to be, unlike other crabs like fiddler crabs and whatnot, horseshoe crabs tend to be a little bit picky about where they nest. They kind of like a little bit better water quality, really specific conditions. So where we find them, those are generally areas where we would want to protect, right, from development and harm and things like that. They are also threatened, so they're not quite endangered, but they're getting there, so we're concerned. And different parts of the country, they're harvested for different reasons, like the biomedical industry. Most of what's harvested in Florida is for the aquarium trade. And in other parts of the country, they're harvested and used as bait, for example, in the Northeast by eel fishermen. So there are rules on how many fishermen can collect and whatnot. And this data, this information gives us a better understanding on what those numbers need to be at. Because right now, there's too many questions and to be answered. So right here in the bucket, we have a mating pair that we just pulled out of the water. This is the male, and we're gonna get ready and do some measurements, and we're gonna document it and document the tag, and we'll go through the whole process for this little guy. So the first thing I start with is we will try to get the width. We want to get the width of this front part of their body, starting at the widest part, and that's going to be 130 millimeters. Yep, everything in metric and science. And then the next important thing we've got to measure is the weight. So the first thing that we do is we measure the weight of the bag, which changes a little bit because the bag tends to get wet and muddy as the more we use it throughout the day. So this is at 0.075 kilograms. And then the total weight is 0.370.
So, Ronaldo, what is the hope here? When you place these tags on these animals, what is the goal? What is the hope here? That because these tags are pretty visible. We saw one on the first horseshoe crab that we found.
That's right. I have one. You have one? So the tags have a number on them, and it's called Horseshoe Crab Watch. We're doing the tagging, and it is a citizen science program where anybody can join us and go through the training, like even high schoolers and younger, to learn how to do this and volunteer and collect the data with us. But the watch part also comes from anyone who's out on the water. So if you're out here kayaking, you come visit MacArthur State Park, and you see a horseshoe crab with one of these tags, there's a little website on there and there's a tag number. The best thing to do is to take a photo, and you can report your sighting to this website so that we'll know where these guys end up, because we might tag them here, but they might end up miles down the lagoon and Tarpon Cove. We've been seeing some, or other areas. So the idea is to really see where they're at, where they're nesting, but also see if they migrate or they might end up in another spot. So we did the weight, we did the width. Another important thing is, are they damaged? So we like to look underneath, make sure they have their 10 legs. This one has all his 10 legs. You can see the eggs. Even though this is a male, he's helping the female bury the eggs, and you can see some are kind of just stuck to him underneath.
Right there.
Yeah.
So see that right there?
And they start off as those little white blobs. Is he? Yeah, he is.
Wow, we have lots of fingers and less legs.
About how long they can live.
That is a great question. So he is missing a front L. And you can tell he's a male because he has this hooked kind of boxing glove thing right on that one. And he's missing his other one. And how old they are. So a really neat fact about horseshoe crabs is they're born super tiny, maybe about the size of a dime or smaller. And as they grow up, they molt their outer layer, their skin, kind of like snakes and spiders. They molt, and as they get bigger, and they'll go through 17 molts before they reach their adult stage. And they've been known to live about 20-ish years or so.
Right, nice.
So this one's an old one. You can tell because he has some growth. He's this really dark color. Younger ones are lighter color, and they kind of have like a smooth, mucusy kind of cover on them. And he also has a big dent in the front of his head. And then comes the part where we put the tag in. So the tag is really simple. It's just a small plastic disc with this little black clip that's designed to go in but not come out. So I kind of ballpark where it is because you don't want the tag to be overhanging and getting in their way. And then using this special tool, we just slowly make a hole in it. And they don't feel it, it's their shell. Sometimes you see, if it's a female, sometimes you'll see little eggs come out. Sometimes you'll see a little bit of their blood, but this is a part of their shell where there's no major organs or any kind of sensory thing, so they do pretty well. And some are harder than others. It seems like the older they are, the harder it is to make the hole deep enough.
Back comment.
Yeah. And there you go. And that just goes right in. And you push in that clip all the way. And I try to be gentle but firm.
All right. So, do we have any questions for Ronaldo here?
Well, we were making sure that we weren't hurting them. We just answered that question. And it's very interesting that, as citizens, that people have an opportunity to get involved. And even our students, when they're out there, people go fishing and whatnot. When you see these things, they actually have an opportunity to report on the sightings, which is super exciting.
Right. And so while Ronaldo and Melissa are working up this other crab, if you girls want to come on over here real quick, or let me come over to you. Let's do that. So,
Benji, come on over.
Yeah.
It's better with lighting.
Yeah. Go over here. Okay.
And Benji, we have about 8 minutes left.
All right. So I want to talk to you gals.
You said you have 8 minutes.
Okay. So first of all, I want to talk to you all, but I want to say thank you to Ronaldo and Melissa. And I don't know if you guys have seen Melissa yet. Melissa is here. She's working hard, part of Lake Worth Waterkeeper. I want to say that they have this awesome program called the Lagoonies. So if anybody's watching from the Lake Worth Beach area or really anywhere around the county, and you want to get involved, where can they learn more?
You can check out our website at lakeworthwaterkeeper.org. That's lakeworthwaterkeeper.org.
Right
logo
there.
on that.
Cool logo.
And we have all our information there, including our education programs, our Lagoonies, and we're constantly working to try and update it to have more volunteer opportunities as well.
Right. So let's talk about some of those volunteer opportunities, right, guys?
Thank you.
I think we got the wind dying down. So, Chris, tell me if the wind starts to be an issue here. But we talked about this citizen science. You guys were helping out Ronaldo and Melissa today, but it's not like you were just coming in here cold, not knowing what a horseshoe crab was. So, what did you have to do before you came out to do this research?
So we had to do a 3-hour horseshoe crab course, and it was by the University of Florida, and it was pretty easy but very informational. And they just had videos of professors that talked about horseshoe crabs and their lifespan and how to identify them and stuff, and then little quizzes of it.
Right. So not too bad, right? Gave you a little basis of knowledge, right, before you come out here and do the research.
Yeah.
So if any of you guys want to be involved in the research, definitely get in touch with Ronaldo and Melissa and the Lake Worth Waterkeeper. Again, it's right there. Take the training, come out with these great folks, and help with citizen science. So you guys, before we kind of start wrapping up here, tell me about your career goals. I mean, you're obviously into science. You wanted to come out here and wade through the estuary that's infested with all these tiny baby sharks. Have you guys seen any yet?
No.
Oh, okay. I saw a fin earlier, and we saw one yesterday. But tell me a little bit about what are you guys thinking? Are you guys thinking about careers in science?
I want to be a doctor.
A doctor?
So, something
okay.
like that.
Any kind of research field or? Okay. All right.
Research.
So general medicine, kind of, right?
I probably want to be like a marine biologist, like study actual like ocean animals, like marine mammals mostly. I think.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah.
For me, it's like same as mine, just studying biology, just being a doctor.
Yeah. Awesome. Kylie, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I knew I liked being outside and growing up in South Florida, playing out at the beach and diving around, snorkeling around, boating, you know. I knew whatever I wanted to do, I wanted my hands in and around water. So same thought, you know, marine biology, you know, but it's crazy how many different careers with that mindset you can go through. I'm an environmental scientist, is essentially what I got a degree in, with a focus in marine conservation and biology with all coastal focus. And the options are endless of what you can do with your career. I've worked with turtles, I've worked with manatees, I've worked in estuaries, I've worked in wetland swamps, I've seen most of what Florida has to offer in the realm of environmental science, and it's a really great field to get into if this at all speaks to you.
Yes.
So, can I ask a question? So your degree is in environmental science, but you did all this different stuff. Did you learn this on the job?
I did.
Your different jobs? Okay, cool.
So much comes from school, and school is really important in getting you connected and learning a basis, but getting yourself out there and getting connected with the people within the community that you want to involve yourself in will just take you eons and eons further into what you want to do for the rest of your life.
Right. So thank you, girls, for coming out, hanging out in the estuary, braving the tiny baby sharks. We're going to come out here and wrap up because we got something really special to show you guys before we say goodbye.
Okay.
Thank you, girls, for being here. That was awesome to see you guys out there.
Yes, thank you. All right, so we're going to say goodbye to everybody when we do sign off, but we got something really, really cool to show you.
It's getting deep.
Let's see, what kind of timing we got? How many minutes left?
3.
Okay, 3 minutes left. Good timing. Alicia has done well with keeping me on task and on topic.
Now, I know you guys are probably sick of talking about horseshoe crabs at this point, but we just really wanted to highlight what these guys look like as babies. So you can see their size is obviously a lot smaller. Their coloration is that lighter color, and that's because, like Ricardo was saying, they're going to molt or shed their exoskeleton, that outside shell, 17 times. So you can see that this larger one, he actually has some damage to his, but he's not too concerned about that because guess what's going to happen?
He's going to molt, and he's going to regrow that shell.
He's going to get a new one. Now, the other reason for this really light color is the sand color is typically a lighter color, and these guys blend perfectly. So these birds and different things that are going to look to eat them from high up above have way less of a chance of trying to find these guys if they're this light color, easily camouflaged. They're almost translucent, if you can see, like through the water as Benji holds them down there. Pretty cool little critters.
All right, so Kylie, we're going to let these guys go. Thank you guys again for coming out and hanging out with us on one of our virtual live field trips. I do want to say, though, if you guys want to get engaged with us more, we have internship opportunities. So if you're interested, please get in touch with us. You can find us online, pbcerm.com, on social, at pbcerm, Facebook and Instagram. And we also do an amazing adventure series. So we lead guided paddles, swamp trumps, photography workshops, all kinds of things in the natural areas, including here in Lake Worth Lagoon. So please come explore with us, explore your backyard. This is what makes where we live so special and so amazing. So till next time, I think we got one more trip this year where we're going to go deep into the swamp when the water levels are low and it's going to be exploding with life. I hope you had fun here at Lake Worth Lagoon, MacArthur Beach State Park. Check out High Point Paddle. Come paddleboard this estuary. It is amazing. All right. Until then, Kylie.
It's a great time having you guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Perfect time to be out, golden hour. Appreciate your guys' outdoor spaces, and thanks for hanging out.
All right, let's say goodbye to Ronaldo and Melissa. See you guys. All right, Wellington High.
Thank you guys so very much. What a great trip. What a great way to spend an afternoon.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
Betcha. Everyone who's still on here, there is a attendance form that I just posted, so you can access that through your Google Classroom or on the YouTube link. Thanks for being here.